centenarians.
I'm 96.
97.
98.
This data on the FOXO pathway that came from Hawaii and then confirmed by us was confirmed by other groups, and in fact it's the most consistent, validated study in this field, suggesting that this is real and important for human aging and longevity.
You don't feel old. You feel young.
And it's also consistent with what we have learned, that there's this whole concept of a superintendent that is regulating whatever is going in the house.
Oh, you go. And in the future, that knowledge could be used to develop new drugs to combat age-related diseases.
Fish on.
And perhaps someday to help us live longer.
Good job, Mr. Harai.
The vast majority of us get an average set of genes. So it's what you do that becomes most important. Eating a good diet, regular physical activity, engaged in life.
As you age, I think every little thing pleases you more than in the past.
And now I gotta aim for the century mark, yeah.
So how do you think you're going to celebrate your 100th birthday?
100 candles would be a fire hazard.
Yeah, it would be a fire hazard.
At least for now. It's much easier to extend the life of a car than of a person like you or me. The car's not flesh and blood and complex organs. But what if you could create a version of yourself that was indestructible? In this episode's profile, we'll meet a computer scientist who wants to build virtual versions of ourselves. Avatars that look, act, and talk like real people, and will hang around long after the flesh and blood versions of us are dead and gone. In 1987, when Jason Lee tuned into Star Trek: The Next Generation, he saw the holodeck for the very first time.
I was curious to see how three of history's greatest minds would interact in this setting.
A place where people from the distant past can live on as computer-generated holograms.
End program.
And that's when a sci-fi TV show gave this computer scientist his big idea. A way to allow all of us to, in a sense, live forever.
If you were to think about that when Star Trek first came out, you would think, oh, this would be impossible to do. But now it's possible.
At the University of Illinois, Chicago, Jason has been obsessed with turning his fantasy into reality through Project Lifelike, a plan to make immortality available to anyone by creating a virtual copy of you as an avatar. A concept that intrigued Jason long before James Cameron parlayed it into a billion-dollar blockbuster.
An avatar is an instance of yourself that's digital, that will never die.
Jason knows he can't really make you live forever, but he can use computers to preserve your thoughts, memories, even the way you look, for eternity.
Can I live forever?
In the future, your children's children will be able to meet with you. Students will be able to talk to scientists long gone, like Stephen Hawking or Neil deGrasse Tyson even.
Who, me? Well, I'd be honored. Jason's vision of a world where we can build relationships with dead people, from the famous to family members, was deepened by another movie.
In the film Superman, Jor-El, who's Superman's dad, is long gone and dead.
You do not remember me. I'm your father.
But instead is able to counsel him as if he were still alive.
Jason's journey began in 1960s Hong Kong, where he was a shy, awkward boy with no real friends.
I was really, I guess, a geek would be a good term for it, but I was also artistically inclined. I was drawing anything I saw in science fiction.
It's a missile, and it's headed straight for us.
Star Wars blew my mind. All these wonderful and cool technologies that we as mere mortals living today didn't have access to.
And before long, Jason was drawing his own inventions.
I remember we had these 3-ring binders, and the paper would always rip, and it just drove me nuts. And so I was imagining some futuristic computer. It wasn't a computer back then. I didn't know what a computer was. A futuristic magical pad where I would write on. Of course, nowadays we call it a tablet computer.
And we call it the iPad.
If only I had patented back then.
Then, Jason saved up to buy his own computer. And he instantly became obsessed, spending 9 hours a day at the keyboard.
Even when I went to sleep, I was writing code while I was asleep, and I would find an error, and I would wake up, and I would find, yep, certainly there was an error in the code.
When Jason left Hong Kong to go to college, he had promised his parents he would study the well-established field of chemical engineering. But he had a secret plan.
The first day I landed in the US, I head straight for the computer science department and said, how do I switch majors? And then I wrote a letter back to my dad and said, I switched to computer science. He was actually supportive.
After college, Jason was eager to make his mark designing computer graphics. And he learned about EVL, the Electronic Visualization Lab in Chicago.
It was people who had long hair, all sorts of strange and crazy people.
These self-proclaimed techno-hippies were finding new ways to merge computers and art.
And I thought, wow, finally, a program that thinks and does things the way I've always wanted to do. I said, well, I'm going to just let my hair grow out. So I fit in and became one of the techno-hippies. So I think it's a great time to be a geek.
At EVL, Jason blends games and movies into every aspect of his life. From his work, to his play, to his car, and even his kendo, which is as close as he's going to get to a lightsaber battle in Chicago.
It very much is bringing Jedi Knightism into reality.
No respectable Jedi Knight would use any other Jedi's sword.
After 15 years, Jason became lab director. And he could now take aim at his most ambitious sci-fi fantasy, how to create a realistic avatar. Still an artist at his core, Jason used art as inspiration and his drawing skills to develop ideas. In 2007, Jason joined the growing field of avatar researchers as he began work on his plan to live forever. As usual, Jason started with a drawing.
I always start with a picture in my mind. The picture goes onto paper. The picture goes into the computer. I spin the thing around to see if it makes sense.
Next, Jason had to make an avatar look like a living, breathing person. For a guinea pig, he used himself.
First of all, we take photographs of their face from multiple angles so that we can use software to reconstruct the face in 3 dimensions as realistically as we can.
Then Jason teaches his double to move, just like he does.
And so for that, we put them in a motion capture suit.
Jason even records and modifies his avatar's emotional expressions.
Like whether they are happy, sad, angry.
Let's look at a little bit of anger. There you go.
As Jason fine-tuned the graphics, he needed to teach his avatar to think and talk. So he turned to artificial intelligence experts.
Our collaboration involves researchers in Florida.
To overcome the 1,000-mile gap between collaborators, Jason's team invented their own 20-foot video wall. So the researchers in Chicago and Florida could work on the avatar's intelligence as if they were in the same room.
The avatar doesn't use its hands now to talk, and I think at some point we're going to need to show some hand-waving motion.
Jason records the ideas and thoughts he wants his avatar to express.
Designing computer algorithms is like writing poetry or painting a picture.
So that someone can sit down and ask his avatar dozens of questions.
Why is Star Trek important to you?
Star Trek portrayed so many compelling ideas about our future.
And this idea of preserving our life experiences for future generations has been catching on.
When I watched Avatar, the most interesting notion about it was when these people passed on, their knowledge is absorbed into this tree of past knowledge. And I thought, aha, that's what we're trying to do. Ultimately, what you have is a collective knowledge of people.
Jason dreams of a future where anyone can program all of their thoughts, feelings, memories, hopes, and fears into a virtual replica of themselves, so people can actually speak directly to those long gone.
What we'd like to do in the future is to try and break the avatar out of the box, make it a person in the real world, conversational avatars that are as intelligent as humans.
You mean me? You mean I'm not really alive?
Most things that break in a car can be fixed, but every now and then, some things can go catastrophically wrong.
And the results could be fatal.
In those situations, if we could freeze time, we could fix the problem before the worst happens. Well, some doctors think they can do just that with people who are in the middle of life-threatening crises, like a heart attack or stroke. Correspondent Peter Standring found out how freezing, or at least slowing down time, is already saving lives.
All set. Drive safely. Thank you.
Every once in a while, there are news reports of miraculous survivals that seem almost too incredible to be true. People who drown in icy water, or are buried in snow. Their hearts stop beating, and they're getting no air. They seem to be dead, yet mysteriously, they come back to life.
I got a pulse.
Somehow, their bodies seem to go into a state of suspended animation, so they can survive without oxygen for an hour or more instead of mere minutes. But how? Researchers have been looking for clues in some surprising places. Starting with this guy, the 13-lined ground squirrel. He might not look like he has much in common with near-death survivors, but in fact, he's an expert at surviving an experience that seems like it should kill him: hibernation. Today, I've come to Minnesota in search of these hibernating squirrels. And it's freezing.
So the squirrels are actually underneath all of this snow and under the ground right here?
All around here. The animals are probably about 4 feet below the surface of the snow.
Man, how do they survive that?
That's a great question, and it's something we're trying to figure out in the laboratory.
Matt Andrews is trying to unlock the secrets of hibernation.
Here in Minnesota,
could the hibernating squirrels have something in common with people who mysteriously come back from the dead?
So what is this place? What is this room, Matt?
this is the environmental chamber where we keep our animals in a state of hibernation.
Why are we whispering?
We want to duplicate the conditions that the animal experiences underground during the winter, and so we're duplicating that here in the laboratory setting.
The squirrel's dark laboratory home is kept at 40 degrees, about the same as it would be underground.
So underneath all of this sawdust, we have our 13-line ground squirrel.
This is exactly what they would look like when they were in their burrow. And there is a hibernating 13-line ground squirrel.
Comfy, cozy, rolled up in a ball.
And this is the way that this animal spends the winter.